Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our My Decorative Quilter webinar for this evening. In this webinar this evening, we're going to be creating a Crazy Quilt zipper bag using a Crazy Quilt technique, and we're also going to be using the Crazy Quilt stitches that are built into My Decorative Quilter. This project was created by Rita Gazard and is presented by myself, Mark Garetz, and I'm a National Floriani educator. I always like to show you what the project is going to look like. You can see here that we've got a traditional Crazy Quilt looking pieced design, but this is not going to be pieced traditionally like we would piece a quilt. Instead, it's going to be done as an applique technique. We're also going to be using the Crazy Quilt stitches that are built into the software to both tack the pieces down and hide the raw edges of the fabric and give us a decorative look. So we're going to go ahead and end the slideshow now, and we'll come back to it a little bit. But we're going to go to our software now. If you haven't done it already, you want to click on the new icon here to open up a new document, and you should have a window that looks like this. If you see your grid lines, you want to turn them off, and you do that with this grid control right here to turn the grid lines on and off. If they look like this, just simply click the grid control to turn them off. Next thing we want to do is look at our ruler up here in the upper right hand corner and make sure that we are in inches mode. If we are in inches mode, you don't need to do anything. If you happen to be in metric, you want to right click on the ruler and select inches just like that, and you'll be in inches mode. The next thing we want to do is make sure that our screens are all set up the same so you can follow along. So to do that, come up here to Tools, come down to the bottom, click General Options, click our grid settings here. We want to make sure that our grid spacing is set to 0.25 inches or 1/4 of an inch. We want to make sure that both horizontal and vertical are set that way. And we also want to make sure that snap to grid is checked. So if it's not checked, check it. Lastly, we want to come down here to our digitizing icon. Make sure your outline input mode is set to simple draw. If you haven't changed it, it should already be on simple draw. Come down here and click OK to lock those changes in. Now, before we get started with this project, I just want to let you know that there's a few things that you're going to want to download. So if you've downloaded this, you've probably already got these files, but you want to make sure you put them in the right place. So there are 3 files in addition to this video file, actually 4 files in addition to this video file that you should have downloaded. One of the printed instructions, your PDF, so you want to make sure you print those out. You can follow along with those along with these videos. But also you are going to need 2 image files. We're going to load these in as backdrops. One is called Map for Crazy Quilt Block, and the other is called Shape Order, and those are both .png or PNG files. You want to put them on your desktop or someplace that you know where they are so you can get to them from the backdrop tool. You're also going to have a third file that is called your placement / tack down stitches file. It'll be a C2S file. In the first part of the software example, we're going to create our placement and tack down lines for our applique pieces. If you don't want to do that step, you can simply load in that file. It'll all be done for you, that placement tack down file. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to load our first backdrop in. Now there's 2 ways to load a backdrop. One is with the backdrop tool here. The other is with our file load backdrop, and that's what we're going to do for these examples. That is the way you have to do it for this example because we're going to be loading multiple backdrops in, and the only way to do that is with file load backdrop. So they're on my desktop. I'm going to scroll down to where they are. The first one you're going to want to load in is the Map for Crazy Quilt Block, and click Open, and it's going to load in this image here that looks like a map of how we're going to draw our stitches. So here's our start point, A, B, C, D, and all the way up to our end point here. We are going to begin to create our stitches. The first thing you want to do is create a run stitch. So you're going to click on the run stitch icon up here. And then we're going to create, first of all, a stitch that goes all the way around the edge of the block. Now, since we have snap to grid turned on, we don't need to get super close to all these endpoints. Just any place we get to them will work. So we're going to come here and we're going to click right here to create our first stitch. Why is that not working? Okay, here we go. We're going to create our first stitch. simply by clicking here, and we're going to come down here, and you see how that is snapping in place. So we're going to click here, we're going to come over to this point here and click, we're going to come up to this point here and click. Finally, we're going to come back to our very beginning point and click again, and then we are going to right click to tell it to create those stitches. I'm going to turn on 3D mode so it's a little bit easier for you to see the stitches, although right now they're still a little bit difficult to see because the backdrop is interfering. But if you turn off the backdrop, you'd be able to see the stitches. So what we're going to do now is we're going to need this stitching twice. So we've created one. We're going to come here to our select tool, and we're going to click on it to select it. We'll click over here in our sequence view to select it, and we are going to make a copy. So we're going to click our copy icon, and then once it's copied, we are going to click our paste icon. And that is going to make 2 copies. So you can see over here right now we've got 2 copies. So with the second one automatically selected for us, we are going to go ahead and we are going to right click on color number 2 in our color palette down here. So we're going to right click on it, and that is going to separate these out as 2 separate stitches. So we want to make them as separate elements, so that's what we're doing. On the second one, we're also going to change some of the properties of it. We're going to come here to our properties. We're going to backspace over that and then click 2.5. So we're going to change our stitch length to 2.5 millimeters, and we are going to change the type from standard to bean. So we're going to change it to a bean stitch and leave the bean repeats at 3 and click apply. This is just going to give us a little extra holding power here. So now we've got our bean stitch and our second our stitch length changed to 2.5 for the second element. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select our Run Stitch tool again, and now we're going to create the placement lines for where to put our applique pieces down. So you're going to click on the Run Stitch tool, you're going to come here and you're going to right click on color number 3, and that's going to make everything that we stitch now in that color. And we are going to be clicking around our path here. So we're going to come up here, we're going to come up to our start. And remember, because snap to grid is on, we don't have to be super accurate here. It's going to snap to our points. So we're going to left click on start. We're going to come down to point A and left click, to point B and click, to point C and click. We're now going to go back to point A. So we're going to come back to point A. We're going to go out to point D. And from point D, we're going to go back to point C, so we're going to come down here to point C, then we're going to move down to E, and then we're going to come up to F and click, we're going to come back to D, and then finally up to our end here. When we get to our end point, we are going to right click to finish those stitches, and if you look over here in the sequence view now, we've got our path set up for our placement lines. This is going to show us where to put down the fabric shapes. We're going to trace each shape now individually to put down the tack down lines. The order that we're going to do this in is going to allow us to put down 2 applique pieces at once. So we're not going to do it in a particularly normal order, but the shapes are going to be separated. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to load a new backdrop to show us the shape order. And that's cleverly called the shape order backdrop. To do that, we're going to come up to our file menu, and we're going to click once again load backdrop, and we're going to come down to our desktop again, and we're going to come down and find the shape order.png, and we are going to open that file up, and you can see now that we've got a brand new backdrop in here. This is the order that we're going to put in our shapes. We're going to now click around each shape. It doesn't really matter the order that you click around it, but we are going to click around each one. So you want to come up here and select color number 4 first. So you're going to right click on color number 4 in our color palette, and then we are going to select our Run tool, and now whatever we draw will be in color number 4. In our properties box, we want to first change the properties list from standard to bean, and we're also going to change our stitch length to 2.5. And we are going to click apply. So that's gonna, everything we draw now is going to be in a bean stitch with a length of 2.5. So we're going to make our first shape. We're going to click around shape number 1. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to come down to the bottom here, click on that guy, click over here, and click back up here. And I'm going to right click to finish it. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the color. So we're going to change from color number 4 to color number 5. So I'm going to right click on color number 5, and I am going to click around shape number 2. So I'm going to start up here. I'm going to click, 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 and click one more time, then right click to finish that shape. And I'm just going to now do shape number 3. Before I do that, I'm going to go back to color number 4. So I'm going to right click on color number 4 and click around shape number 3. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks, and right click to finish it. We're going to go back to color number 5, a right click on color number 5, and we're going to do shape number 4. So here I go. I'm going to click around shape number 4, 2, 3, 4 points, right click to finish that. We're going to right click on color number 4. You see how I'm alternating back and forth between color number 4 and color number 5. So we're now going to right click, we're going to click all around color number 5. So I'm going to start down here, come up here, come here, and back down here, right click to finish it. Again, I'm going to go back to color number 5. Now I'm going to do shape number 6. So when I do shape number 6, it's important that we click this point right here. If we look at our previous diagram, this is point D. We need to include this point so we don't have a gap there, but I'm going to start here, come over here, come down here, click on this intermediate point, click on our last point here to finish it, and right click to finish that one. And lastly, we just need to do number 7. We're going to come back and select color number 4 one more time and click around shape number 7. So I'm going to come do this, come back here, click, and then right click again to finish it. And now we've created all our shapes. Your sequence view should look like this. We're now going to come in and we're going to create our crazy quilt stitches. And we create our crazy quilt stitches in one of 2 ways. One is by using this crazy quilting icon here. The other is to actually convert some stitch types to crazy quilt stitches. There's 2 different ways to do this, and you get 2 different effects. To show you the first effect, I'm not actually going to create it on the design. I'm going to create it out here in the margin. The first thing I'm going to do that is I'm going to come up to my tools, to my general options, and I'm going to turn off on my grid snap to grid. I'm going to turn that off temporarily. Now you may want to use this technique, but it's not the technique that we use in this design. I'm just showing you this so you can see how the crazy quilt stitches work. So to get crazy quilt stitches to work, you click here, click select, and when you click select, you are going to get all of these crazy quilt stitches here. So for this example, let's just select shape number 10 and click OK. And in this particular mode, right now attached to my cursor is that particular crazy quilt stitch. So you click and you drag it to the size that you want and the angle that you want. So I'm just going to click and drag that one. I'll come to the next one, click and drag, and I'm purposefully making these a little bit off kilter and a little bit different size so you can see how that particular mode works. And this is designed to allow you to lay the crazy quilt stitches one at a time, so you can, if you want, get slightly different sizes and a slightly random look. I'm going to backspace all the way out from that, and I'm going to come back to our tools, and I'm going to go back to general options, go back to my grid, and turn snap to grid back on, and click OK, because I'm going to show you the way that we're going to do it for this example. So we are going to do this all along each stitch line, and we're going to create each crazy quilt stitch perfect like a machine did it. So that's what we're going to do for this particular example. To do that, we're going to reload our map backdrop. So I'm going to come up to File, I'm going to click Load Backdrop, and I'm going to come down to the bottom, and I'm going to load the map file one more time and click Open, and it's going to create our map again to show us where to create our Crazy Quilt stitches. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on our Run Stitch icon here, and we're going to come down and we are going to select color number 6. So I'm going to right click here to select color number 6. I'm going to click on the start first, and so that's going to create our first stitch line here. I'm going to come down here to point A, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to right click to end it. Okay, now I'm going to come back up here to my select tool and click select to make sure that stitch is selected so I can work with it. I'm going to come over here to my stitch type, and I'm going to change from standard to crazy quilting. And right here I've got my stitch numerically. Again, if I click here on these ellipses, I will see what the stitch looks like. So we are going to click on this to see the menu of stitches. We're going to scroll through the stitches. When you see one that you like, you can select it. For this particular example, Rita chose stitch number 24, so that's what we're going to use. So we're going to click stitch number 24 and click OK. And we are going to also change the stitch length because 3 millimeters for that stitch length would be awfully tiny. We're going to change it to a stitch length of 8, and we're going to click Apply. And you can see in here we put perfectly each stitch all the way along that row of stitches for that particular stitch run. Now we're going to do our next one. This one is going to be from point A to point B. I'm going to again select my Run Stitch tool. I'm going to click here on point A. I'm going to come down here to point B, and I'm going to right click to end it. I'm going to select it with the Select tool one more time, come up and change from that to Crazy Quilt stitches. Again, you can select it visually. This time I know I want to select stitch 39, so I'm going to do that with the drop down. So I'm going to come down and select stitch number 39, and I'm going to change the length of that one to 6, and I'm going to click Apply, and it's going to put those stitches in there just like that. I'll do one more example for you. I'm not going to go through every single one. It's in the printed instructions. Again, you can use any Crazy Quilt stitch you like. If you want to use the ones that we picked for this design, they're all delineated for you there, and I'm going to do the next one for you here. So I'm going to go back to my Run Stitch tool. I'm going to click from point B to point C, and then I'm going to right click to finish it. Click my Select icon to make sure that stitch is selected. I'm going to use stitch number 25. I'm going to change to Crazy Quilting, select stitch 25, and I'm going to change the length to 6 one more time. So I'm going to take a 6 millimeter, and I'm going to click Apply, and I've put that row of stitches in here. When you get done, you want to save this as crazyquiltblock.c2s, and you're also going to save it in your machine file format. So you're going to come up here to the File, Save, and you're going to select this as, now that was our September project. I'm going to go up. I don't have, do I have November already downloaded? October project. Is this our October project? October 2014. So here's our crazyquiltblock.c2s. So I would save it as that name .c2s, and I would save it. And then I would also change it to my machine format by clicking the second. I do a save as and select my machine format. So for example, I could select Baby Lock PES version 9, for example, and save that file as a stitch file. And we're going to move on now to our stitch out instructions. I'm going to go ahead and close my decorative quilter. So I've already saved this, so I'm not going to save it this time, but you would probably want to save it. I'm going to start up my PowerPoint one more time, and I'm going to select my Crazy Quilt assembly. Okay, you've seen this screen. You've seen what it looks like. So let's just run through our stitch out instructions here. Let's go over the materials we're going to require for this. You're going to need Floriani nylon no-show mesh. You're going to need two 7-inch squares of our embroidery batting. You're going to need some Floriani embroidery thread. You're also going to need bobbin thread, obviously. You can choose the thread color you want for the top depending on what pieces you choose for your fabric. You want a nice either contrasting color or matching color, that's up to you. Optionally, you can use some R&K embroidery perfection tape to hold your pieces down and other things that you'll see. We're going to need 14 fabric scraps. They range in size from 4x4 to 8x8 depending on where you put them. You're going to need two 7-inch squares of fabric for the lining of our zipper bag. You're going to need a zipper at least 7 inches long. You probably want a poly or nylon zipper for this. And you're going to want an 8-inch or 7x7-inch minimum hoop size. And lastly, you're going to need a sharp, fine-pointed or applique scissors to cut our applique pieces. So let's move on here. Just some important notes. Just want to let you know that in the following directions we're going to be referring to the different colors as they were saved in the design. And the color names are going to appear different on your machine most likely. And the color changes that we put into this design are designed to make the machine stop between the steps here. You can leave the same thread in or you can change it if you want. If you have a multi-needle machine, the machine's not going to stop. It's designed to go on to the next thread. So you're going to have to insert some reserve stop commands to make the machine stop in between colors. The first thing you want to do for this project is we're going to hoop up a piece of Floriani nylon no-show mesh. You want to attach the hoop to the machine and load in your Crazy Quilt block design into the machine. Next, you're going to stitch out the blue placement line as you see in the first color there, or first picture there. You're going to place a piece of Floriani embroidery batting over the placement line, and if you want, you can optionally tape it down on the very edges with some of our embroidery perfection tape. You're going to stitch out the red stitch line, which is your tack down line, to hold it in place. And then you're going to remove the hoop. If you use tape, remove the tape and trim the batting close to the tack down line and reattach the hoop to the machine. It should look like the last picture in our pictures here when you are done. Next, you're going to stitch out the green placement lines. You're going to see the places where to put your pieces of fabric. You're going to place two pieces of fabric right sides up as shown here. So you're going to do piece number 1 and piece number 2. You're going to stitch out both the orange and the yellow tack down lines. Next, you want to remove the hoop from the machine, and you want to trim close to the edge of the tack down lines, but only in the center. Do not trim that outer edge. So it should look like it does in the last picture here, and then you're going to reattach the hoop to the machine. Next, you're going to place two more pieces of fabric as shown, again with the right sides up. Stitch out the orange and yellow tack down lines, remove the hoop from the machine, and once again trim close to the lines, but again you're only going to trim the inside edges, not the outer edges, and reattach the hoop. You're going to place two more pieces of fabric down, again with right sides up. Stitch out the orange and yellow tack down lines one more time, remove the hoop, and once again trim close to the tack down lines, but again we're only going to trim the inner edges and we are going to reattach the hoop. Lastly, you're going to put the final piece of fabric down, which is our center piece. You're going to stitch out the orange tack down line, only one tack down line this time. Remove the hoop from the machine. This time you're going to trim around all of the edges. Then you're going to take it out of the machine, or we've already done that, I'm sorry. You're going to flip the hoop upside down. You're going to place the 7-inch piece of fabric for the lining on the back. Make sure you center it over the design. You can either pin or tape the backing piece in tape. Again, making sure the pins or tape are well outside the stitch lines. You're going to flip it back over, reattach the hoop to the machine, and stitch out all your Crazy Quilt stitches. When the embroidery is complete, you're going to go back to the very first stitch using your machine, and you're going to stitch that out one more time in order to secure the back fabric to the front. And you're going to remove the hoop from the machine and remove the design from the hoop. So we are going to now trim the block so the design's outside of the hoop. You're going to put it on your cutting board, trim the block, leaving a 1/4 inch past the last line of stitches that we did, and then you're going to repeat that whole process to create a second block. Now we're going to go on to the assembly of the bag. You want to get your zipper out, and you're going to place one square right side down on the zipper, and you're going to line up the edge of the block to the zipper, and you want to make sure that that zipper is right side up. It should look like the diagram here. So the block is over the top of the zipper, and it's lined up to the outer edge of the zipper. Then you're going to stitch slightly 1/16 inch or so to the left outside of the stitch line along the length of the fabric. You want to make another pass for strength, and then you're going to stitch another line near the outside edge of the zipper tape. You want to line the second block up to the other edge of the zipper like is shown here, and you are going to repeat the sewing steps as you did for the very first block. And then you're going to open out the blocks and top stitch very close to the zipper on both sides. Next, we are going to leave the zipper open about at least halfway, line up the other edges of the blocks. You might want to pin them together. And then you're going to stitch all the 3 sides together by sewing along them with 1/16 inch outside the stitch lines. So this is going to create our, finish up our outer edge of the bag. And again, we want to make several passes at the zipper, and then we want to trim the zipper off to be flush with the edge of the bag. And lastly, we're going to turn the bag inside out, and we are done. This is creating our zipper bag. Again, we weren't able to record this, so the video of this webinar you've already downloaded if you're watching it. You want to use this video along with the printed PDF instructions to create the project at home. And thanks for attending this.